So, Anna Mae Flynn, you are the guest number 4 of our journey talks. We have been lucky to May for us was the ultra running goats month. Why? Because we started with Hillary Allen in the beginning of the month. Then we were lucky to have Carl Meltzer. So we passed from the hilly goat to the speed goat, and now we have the honor to have the climbing ninja, Anna Mae Flynn. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be one of our guests. And just like the past episodes, and first things first, we would like to get to know more about you, especially running away from those cliche presentations. What what can you tell what can you tell us about you that we can't find on social media? Like,
Okay.
we know that you are a math teacher, you started your career in 2015, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken. But is it possible to know more about Anna Flynn beyond what we have on social media?
Sure. So some little things that I've been picking up on about myself, or being more in tune with myself outside of just being a runner and a teacher, is, well, also I'm a running coach. So I am also all about creating community, and I feel like running is such a internal motivator, and it can also be, it's so individualized, that I think that being a coach now has given me a lot more meaning, and so just creating community through coaching has given me a lot of joy. So I spend a lot of my downtime when I'm not training coaching. And then I also have 2 dogs that are my training partners. So I often train alone, mainly because I do love my time running. I do love running with people, but running for me is, it's like, it's like yoga. It's like it's a movement, a meditation of movement. And so I love running so much, that I typically run alone, but I run with my dogs. And when we finish our runs, we go down by the river and I soak in the river. And water is also brings me a lot of, it's very cathartic. And so I often spend a lot of my time seeking out, high alpine lakes or rivers to soak in. So yeah.
And I'm sorry again about this noise. Taking into account one of the things that you said, like running is kind of like a yoga meditation for you. That somehow I really like that idea, because that somehow resonates with the mission of this project, which is we really want to connect people that use especially trail running and ultra running as like a personal a tool for personal growth. Not only like we really don't care about you being fast, you being the first,
Mm-hmm.
you finishing in a podium. Okay, that might be important
Yeah.
for athletes, but in the end, taking into account that most athletes are non-professional, um, we are really focused on that niche. And one of the questions
Mm-hmm.
that we always ask to our guests, and taking into account what you said, what and you being a professional runner, so of course competition is important for you. It's part of your career, but in the end, what running means to you?
Yeah, so I think that has evolved over time. I ran competitively in high school and college, and then and I've always just enjoyed showing up to practice every day. And it was never about the meets. And I was lucky to have coaches who instilled that sense of community early on. And so it was all about creating friendships and being kind of like in that cross country pack. It's like us girls together, feeding off of each other, laughing, talking about our day, and then also pushing ourselves to show up to be our best every day. And if that equates to a first place finish, great, but it didn't matter. It was just like, you're on the school bus showing up to the start line, and we're just like all having fun, excited about having pizza after. And so I was just lucky to have that kind of like community aspect instilled at a young age. But then when I was in college, it was like, then the kind of pressure set in. And so I ended up like leaving the sport my junior year in college. And then in my 20s, I wasn't really running. I was surfing and climbing and just doing other sports that were more mountain endurance based. So I, was road biking and swimming and got involved with triathlons. And then whenever I moved to Lake Tahoe in California in my late 20s, I was running up mountains and taking in the views and, kind of just walking back down. I wasn't really focused on the training part too much. But then I got involved with the running community there, and it instilled that sense of belonging and joy that I feel like I had once had in my youth that was lacking. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah,
No,
essentially
you did.
yeah.
And I asked this same question to Hillary, but before I ask you this question, Sven knows already this, but Emily, Sven, while I'm asking questions to Anna, please feel free, if you don't want to turn on your camera, feel free to use the chat, and let's make this like a co-creation conversation. Please feel free to ask your questions. So one of the questions I would love to ask you, and I also ask this to Hillary, because like you started in 2015, and that's not that's only 6 years ago. And taking into account that what normally people think about professional competitive sport is that you need to have like 10, well, of course I'm exaggerating, but uh, you need to have like 10 to 12 years of experience, and you only have 6 years of experience. So would you say that the secret sauce for your success is you are like a natural talent born runner, or it's also a mix of your passion for the sport? You are someone that uses hashtag showing up every day. So can you tell us like what you believe that's your secret sauce for your successful career?
Yeah, I would say, I've from a young age, I've always been running, like running. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina, on a farm. So I always had my hands and my feet in the soil. It was always climbing trees and just running around. And so I feel like, I don't know, I've always just been active. And I really love the thrill of running uphill. And I don't know, maybe that just takes a special person, because there's not very many people who love hill repeats, but I do. And so whenever I got a chance, like if, there was a mound on the playground, I would run up it, or I would try to be the first to the top of a hill. And so maybe that kind of, because speed equates to hill power too. So I think that because I was just naturally drawn to reaching higher heights at a young age, like it's just been a natural transition for me to enter into the sport of trail running. But with that said, the show continue to show up hashtag. For me, that means that you're not giving it 100% effort every day, but it's also show up for those rest days and mean it. If you want to reach your goal, it's not about, raging 100% every day, but it's taking that day off on your Monday, easing into the week on Tuesday, showing up for your workout ready to go, and giving it your all on the days that it matters. And then same with the long run. It's like, instead of trying to hit a certain Strava record or hit a certain volume to compare yourself to somebody else, it's all about your journey. And you really have to hone that in, because if you get into a comparison game, or you're doing it for somebody else, then you, in the end, like, you're going to feel defeated, and you're not going to feel like this sport is uplifting you. So I spend a lot of time really like honing in my own practice, and I really try to preach that gospel to my athletes and, the social media running community as well.
Yeah, I really like a sentence that I found from you on the internet. You said something like, "Sure, it's about the races and the results, but the beauty of running," and by the way, happy Global Running Day to everyone.
Yeah.
But the beauty of running is found in the daily journey of showing up every day. I love that. So the question is, not only for you, but as a first layer, let's focus on you, but also to your athletes, since you are a running coach. What drives you? What drives you to show up every day? Is that you are looking well? I want compliment my question, because I really don't want to bias your answer. So what drives you?
um, I think that that's evolved over time. I think right now, I think what drives me is there's many women who are entering into the sport. And so for me, I'm kind of feel like I'm leading the way for a lot of females in the sport. And so that has been really meaningful for me. Just trying to achieve the podium, or, third place is typically, or has been, enough for me. But over the past couple of years, I've really aspired to, be at the top of the podium, or shoot for course records or FKTs. And it's like, I'm trying to, in my own world, whenever I show up every day, I am thinking about the women who are following in my footsteps, and also looking to the women who I aspire to, who have kind of shown me the way, like Emily Forsberg and Anna Frost, Ida Nielsen. They're the true OGs of the mountain running ultra community. So, and so I'm in that same space, not only results oriented wise, but just trying to be a good example, and giving them kind of an inside look to how I've gone from, a amateur trail runner to a professional trail runner.
Okay, okay. And how was it for you to well, to since you are a professional runner, how was it for you to train during like this last a year and a half? So taking into account that most races were cancelled, and again, you were so focused on, well, I would say 50-50. So you were focused on training and also coaching. But you as a professional runner, how was it for you on, or what this period taught you, taking into account that you were looking to be like the best version of you and to get the best results possible? Then you see that there's a
Hmm.
period that cancels most of the races. What are the main learnings from this period, taking into account that you did not have like a real focus, aka races? So,
Yeah.
what were the learnings?
I would say number one, racing is a privilege, first and foremost. Running is a privilege under that. So I think that I just felt more gratitude and practice gratitude every day when I went out for a run, laced up my shoes. I am privileged to be in an area where running wasn't canceled for me and I could run on the trails that I always run on. And so that was number one. Number two was cultivating community and leaning on community. And we are all in this together kind of mindset. So it kind of stripped that any kind of ego that I had developed was just like gone. Like, okay, we're all in this together. We're talking about lives. We're talking about our health. We're talking about, you know, Black Lives Matter. We're talking about equality. We're talking about justice. Like there was just so much that had kind of unfolded in 2020 that kind of had me. I took a step back, both physically and literally, or like literally and mentally, where I kind of took a step back with training and said, okay, I personally want to put more energy into creating community and not so much my training right now. And I also want to take a step back and with my mindset and think about just kind of the direction that I'd like to head in moving forward. Is it going to be results focused moving forward for me? Or do I need to have a larger approach? And so since then, I've partnered or am supporting indigenous communities and trying to partner or to create more inclusive running communities for BIPOC athletes. And so that has, I've just been kind of getting more involved into those sort of projects. And that has given me a lot of joy and meaning over the past couple years. It seems like almost a year and a half now. And that work hasn't stopped now that I've gotten vaccinated and racing is starting to open up. I feel a lot more whole. It's like there's been a lot of grief and a lot of sadness in 2020, but I think the silver lining is, the running community at large has gotten a lot closer.
Yeah, yeah,
That's my
true,
perspective.
true. Yeah. And as a coach, what was the message you share with your athletes? Because I believe that most athletes that contact you and the athletes that you have on your own coaching team, they also, so they look for you because they want to prepare for a specific race, I would say. So what was the message you share with them during this period?
Hashtag keep showing up.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Here's a
well,
new
and
trend.
I think it was the rephrasing of, keep showing up and like push, push, push to keep showing up to your practice every day. Because again, like that last post that you had referred to is that it isn't about the races. I mean, it is. And like the races are a time to celebrate all of the work that you have put in to get to that moment. And so to show up to be your best on race day. And that's one glimpse of all of the days that you put in to leading up to that. And that's okay. If you're doing a more technical race, that's all of the days that you've worked on your technical skills. It's all of the long runs you put in to build up to go from a 50K to 100K. It's all the heat training you put in to be prepared for, a warmer climate race. There's all of these. It's the time that you spent waking up at 5 a.m. in the morning to get your run in before work, or, all the different sacrifices that you made for your own practice, I think goes into that keep showing up. It's like, it's the bigger picture. It's the lifestyle that we all get to enjoy, right?
Yeah.
That's
true.
the bigger picture, where we put in every day. We put in the work every day to show up for our lifestyle.
Okay.
And the races are like the celebrations along the way. There we go.
Well, let me, and I wasn't looking to ask you this question, but since we are focused on the hashtag keep showing up, do you agree? So last month we wrote an article saying that, well, everyone knows this famous quote, life is a marathon, not a sprint. So would you say that life is not a sprint nor a marathon, but an ultra running race? Do you agree?
I love that. Yes, I 100% agree. And you know what I love about that, going back to the lifestyle, is an ultra marathon can be any distance. It's forever. The limit, the sky is quite literally the limit. You have Courtney Dauwalter breaking records at like 215 miles or whatever. It's like, or Big's backyard. You can quite literally run until the last person standing. So
True.
yeah.
I really love that sentence. Like, life is an ultra running race, because we can find so many comparisons between what happens in life to what happens in a ultra running race.
Oh yeah.
Before moving to a little bit to the coaching side, let me ask you a few more questions. Like, what was your best moment as a runner? And so that's that's A. B. Is there any story or stories that you could share with us about something that went wrong, like a bad moment that you had, like during a training, during a race? If there is, what was the solution to overcome that bad situation?
Okay, let me think. So I guess I would have my worst experience leading up to a race and my best experience racing all in like 1 week. So maybe I'll speak to that, because I think as an ultra runner, or I guess how I've trained my mind and my body has allowed me to kind of push from, third or fourth place to first place. And so the first time I really won a race where I felt like I really showed up today to give it my all was at Speed Goat 50K, where I met the infamous Carl. I think it was 2016, maybe it was 2017, excuse me. And I have heard a lot about Speed Goat. So I trained, for that time, the volume I was doing, the workouts I was doing was preparing me for that race. I ran Broken Arrow 55K and got third that spring. And then I ran 4 Pass Loop FKT, which is in Aspen. as a training run and end up getting the FKT, and that was the week before. And so I kind of knew like I'm peaking for this race. And so I was really excited. And I went down to Denver from Marble to get ready to fly out. And I went out to eat and had gotten food poisoning. And so I slept horribly the few days leading up to the race. And, I was dehydrated, didn't carbo load, obviously. Like my tank was fairly empty. And so I started to begin to doubt myself. I took the flight anyways. So I'm in Utah, staying at a friend's cabin. And at this time I was running for Solomon and, or on their ambassador team. And I remember that evening, I still hadn't slept in a while. And I was like, you know what? You put in the training the past 72 hours, it happened. You can either dwell on that and let it affect you, or you can show up tomorrow and just put that behind you. And so that's what I did. And it was the most perfect race I had ever executed. It was right up my alley. The climbs are almost it's a 5K climb in the beginning. And then you repeat that same distance like 4 times. So there's a ton of vert. It's like 12,000 feet. So five times 20K vert climbing in 50K. And it is quite literally the hardest thing I have ever done. And I have always been a little bit hesitant on downhills. And so going into that first descent off of Hidden Peak, I was like, okay, you just have to think like Emily Forsberg, because I ran with her at the Rut, I think in 2015. And I was able to kind of stay with her for the majority of the time. But when she got on Talus, she was quite literally like a goat, and she would just like pick her line down the hill, and in just a matter of seconds, she was already down the hill, and I'm still at the top, picking my way down. So, and I had been training that skill for several years, and had gone to Madeira, and I'd run Transvolcania, and so I've gotten the experience. So I was like, this is your time, Anime. Like, this is the time to just let it rip. And so I just felt like I'd finally figured it out. And so I don't know if you've had that experience too, but I just flew down the mountain on the Talus and some icy slopes and snow and everything. And I got down to the second aid station and grabbed some Coke, like I was in a bar, like just took shots of Coke and like filled up my water bottle really quick. And that's when I knew that I was going to win the race. And so the rest of the day was just like flawless. And I had so much fun, but yet it was like, I was just pulling out from the like depths of who I was. It was like, just climbing as hard as I could, descending as hard as I could. There was never a moment where I was resting. And I got to that finish line, and I remember coming into the finish line and giving Carl a high five, and Tim Tolfson was there, and Jim Walmsley had won and broke the course record that year. And then I found out that I broke the course record.
Wow.
And so that was a huge defining moment for me. And what people don't know is after that, I said, yay, thank you. And then I went there was like a little building at the end or by the finish line. And my partner, Paul Hamilton, was there, and he had been kind of crewing me or supporting me on the course. And I was like, I have to go sit down. And so I went into the one of the rooms there, and I laid down, and my whole body was like aching and seizing, and I've never felt so empty and so alive at the same time. And there were some paramedics there, and they came and saw me and gave me water and electrolytes, and I had quite literally given it my all. But that was also a defining moment when I knew, like, this is what I'm capable of. And once that flip switches, then you just know yourself and you know what you're capable of. But up until then, I was just kind of doing this, like, kind of hesitant to make moves, to really put myself out there. But again, it had taken all of those showing up day in, day out, and failing and learning through experience to arrive at that moment. But again, if I would have chose to, maybe bow out of that race because I had food poisoning, then I wouldn't have had that experience. Yeah. And I wouldn't have had that.
So would you say that the food poisoning somehow impacted your self-esteem, but then in the middle of the race you felt like, this is my time, I need to go. This is my time, I need to go. So you, just like that, you went from like a very dark place to a very clear place where, well, I'm the one who knows what I'm capable of, and I need to show this is my time. So do you think that was like somehow magically you just gained again self-esteem, and that led you to win the race?
Yes, I think so. I think it was also took some of the external pressure that I was putting on myself, where it was like I just went to the start line and it was calm, and it was like, this is for me, and I'm not doing this for Solomon. I'm not doing it for, this person or this friend or whatever. Like, I'm doing this for me now. Yeah, and I'm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And let's just go a little bit into the coaching side of anime. One of the things that I really found interesting about you is that, for example, there aren't like many articles about you. There are some videos, but you show a different side of ultra running, which is coaching. And when I say coaching, under the umbrella of coaching, we see some other movement, exercise, a different focus of taking into account what we are used to see. So taking into account your coaching experience, what would you say that's let's call it the ultra running stack? Okay, so what I mean by this, okay, you need to know how to run. Okay, you need to know how to move forward. But for example, on your videos, we see like core training, stretching, flexibility. So what would you say? What would you say that is like the kit, the stack you need to prepare yourself for an ultra running race?
Okay, yeah. Well, okay, so the first is the movement, right? So one of the things that I think defines my coaching philosophy that's a little bit different, at least than other American ultra running coaches, is that I see movement as it can be running, but it can also be cross training. So since I live in the Rockies of Colorado, I've taken on a lot of ski mountaineering. And so I've learned that a lot from looking up to Killian and Francois and Emily Forsberg. So that is also a very key element, is that if you can't run 50 miles a week, how about we reframe that into hours? How many hours can you put in a movement? So that is number one. That's the foundation. It's very important. I also have really taken on the heart rate training component of if you're going to look at another data point other than hours per week, I look at heart rate. So I like to really focus on my zone 2, or like my endurance, like heart rate zone. So that's also integral with the movement component of training. And then after that is the load. So when you think about running load, you're quite literally hitting the ground with every step. And that's a lot of impact, right? So especially if you're new to the sport, you need to be very aware of how much you're loading the body. So in order to prepare some of my athletes to jump from, let's say, a half marathon to a marathon, or a marathon to a 50K, I also phase in strength training. And that is also I feel like it's a fairly new phenomenon in the ultra trail running coaching programming. So that has been very profound for me, because I had never really done any strength training up until just a couple years ago. But I worked with a strength training coach, and I've just been able to handle a lot more volume now, because I've worked on strengthening my tendons, my joints, my ligaments, and the musculature load as well. So the strength training is number 2. And then I think nutrition is really important. I advise all of my athletes to at least bring the nutrition that they plan on using on race day during their long runs. So you're training the gut, and you're training the body to take in the fluids and the nutrition that you will use on race day. So that's also really important. I'm not a nutritionist, but I also would recommend, dialing your daily nutrition as well. So I have partners that I will recommend my athletes work with if that's something that they want to address. And then the 4th part is, nutrition, sleep, all of that component too. So I use Training Peaks. So my athletes will comment on how they're feeling. And so I do a qualitative component. So that will be, I'm not feeling as energetic during this long run. My stomach was bothering me, or I felt like I bonked. So that gives me some insight into, okay, maybe what were you eating? What were you drinking? So and then also the sleep component. I have a lot of athletes, if they don't tell me that they're having restless sleep, that can be a component of overreaching or overtraining. So it's really important that athletes' sleep habits are, they're sleeping a good amount, 6 to 8 hours or whatever is normal for that athlete. If it starts to be less, then that might be a sign to me that we need to back off a little bit, or maybe they're taking on extra stress, life stress. And then I guess the 5th, or I don't know where I'm at right now, 4th or 5th component is the mental game. So a lot of athletes, they'll go through all of this training. They've done everything that they can to show up every day and put in their best work, best effort. And then they get to race day or race week, and they're like, I can't do this. I don't think I can hit this time. I'm really afraid of this one climb halfway through. I don't think I can do this. And so a lot of, my coaching in that week or the race week is to be the one that's reassuring them. Look at what you did. Look at all of the work you've put in to this point. Of course you can do it. So I think a lot of it is training the mind as well.
That's funny. That's funny. I love that. And congratulations on your approach, because it totally makes sense to me. And my question is, how do you train someone mentally? Well, besides, hey, look at your journey, look at your results. I'm sure you're ready, but would you say that there's something that we can also add to this to prepare our athletes mentally?
Yeah, I think that having like a motto or a phrase that, like, sometimes I'll write like I'll tell my athletes this too, but you write like a phrase or something like on a notepad, or you can write it on a note card and put it on your bathroom like window. And it's like, I am fast, I am strong, like whatever you feel like whatever it is your hurdle is that you're trying to overcome in your mind, take that and say, no, like, I am a champion. I am good at mountain running. I am an amazing downhill runner. Whatever it is that you feel like this is my goal for this block, or this, leading up to this race. What is that hurdle that you're trying to overcome in that race? And what are you doing every week to work on that? And so you put that in front of you and say, I am doing it, essentially. Like, I am a mountain runner. Look what I'm doing. And you see that every day. I learned that from, I think it's Dina Castor. She's, an amazing marathon runner. And she did that a lot. And I read her book. And so that was something that I had done going into my 2019 season, where I won Lake Sonoma. I won Speed Goat again, and also won a Cirque Series race, which is just a small, like, 10K race, mountainous race. But I had, like, you are a champion. Like, just because, you show up and you're a champion, no matter what, you're winning. And it just comes to fruition. So I think believing in yourself that you can achieve whatever it is that's your obstacle, that you keep yo-yoing back in your mind. Am I good enough? Am I not good enough? Can I do this? Can I not do this? Make it affirmative. Yes, I can. And then it will happen.
Okay. And Sven just asked, and what we can do if there's no upcoming races, like the mental side, the like the importance of the mental side is higher. So what would you do if there is no upcoming races?
I think for me, it's been getting to reconnect with the trails in your area, and if you're not able to travel, that's also a challenge. But I think that just reconnecting with your why, like, why am I doing this? At the end of the day, if there's no races, are you doing it for the races? If so, why? There's got to be an underlying reason. Is it for the community? Do you love the feeling of being in that crowd at the start? Is it, the accomplishment of completing a certain distance? Because we may not be able to be in the crowds, but you can make your own race. Like, if you are trying to accomplish a certain distance, or you want to get better at the 50K or better at the 50 mile, then go out and do it. Make a plan to say, okay, well, my race was going to be in June. It's not happening. I'm going to set a date for myself. I'm doing that for one of my athletes, Joel. He lives in Germany, and he had a marathon that he was supposed to race in April, and it ended up getting canceled. And so he made his own course. He had a couple of his friends in his community that created the aid stations, and he went out and did it himself. So there's things that you can do. And he's also doing one of a more mountainous race that was scheduled in July, or like the beginning of July, has been canceled. So he's created his own route that he's going to do and accomplish I want to say it was his first trail ultra on trail, but he's going to be doing it alone. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Send my best regards to Joel, saying like he's the man. Wow, that's really interesting. So Anna, final questions here. So, what would you say that's the best way to prepare for, like, an athlete to prepare for an ultra running race? Imagine that transitioning from, let's say, from a marathon What would you say that's the best way to prepare for another running race, like a 50K, which is like a good starting point?
Yeah, I would say if you already have a base, so if you're prepared for a marathon, um, let's say it's November, I would say you need like at least 3 to 4 months to just kind of put in some consistent volume at like, zone two. And then also incorporate some strength training. So I do a routine. It's a muscular endurance strength routine where I use a weight vest and I do a lot of like single leg strength exercises to really prepare myself for, single track running and more mountainous. That's more like not as even. So it's really important to prepare your hips and your body to kind of go through that uneven motion of running on trail. And then, 2 or 3 months in, you kind of phase out some of the heavier strength training and do more maintenance strength training. And then you start preparing your VO2 max. So, some coaches will say you need to focus on running economy. And yes, running economy is important. So if you're doing, more faster, flatter speed intervals, that can be a huge advantage in ultras. But I think more importantly, it's the power VO2 max work. So it's the hill work. So I would start off doing some shorter hill work. Intervals for like maybe 3 to 4 weeks for a block in the spring as you're getting closer to your 50K. During that time, you also want to be working on increasing your long runs. So let's say you're doing 15-mile or Ks. So, 20K long runs. And then as you get closer and closer to your peak weeks, you want to start increasing I do something called back-to-back long runs. So on Saturday, I'll do like a longer, more specified long run that's similar to the terrain that I'm going to be running on or racing on. And then on the second day, on Sunday, I do a slower, longer run that might be a little bit shorter, but it's all about the time on feet. So I'm training my body to push through fatigue. And I think that's really key in ultra running. And then, so you're perfecting the back-to-back long run. And then you're also doing some hill interval speed work. And then I typically try and do 3 to 4 weeks of the speed work while I'm also doing the long runs. And then going into peak weeks, I make those hill workouts be more tempo. So I'll do like longer, maybe 10 minutes on, 1 minute off, like up a long hill. Or if you just have one hill, then, you turn around and come back. But I'll maybe do like 30 minutes worth. Okay. So, yeah.
We need to because you talked about so many incredible things.
Sorry.
No. Seriously, like what we need to plan is to in the near future organize a talk with for example our community, your community, to talk about training, because you talked about so many things like zone 2, VO2, hill training, tempos. So I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And because going to an ultra running race and taking into account that it's becoming more and more a trend, something that is it's here to stay. Somehow I believe that we have the mission to tell people, like, if this is your thing, please don't go fast. That's not the most important thing. It's about consistency. And everything that you talked about, like zone 2, VO2, tempo training, hill training, consistency. Because normally amateur athletes, what they do is, imagine that you start the motorbike engine Full throttle, go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to talk and schedule a conversation to focus more on training. So last question, Anna. Um, what what would you say? Well, I will make a different question. What are your favorite trails? Like, and you can tell in specific, like in the US is here, in Europe is here. Like, because trail for
Yeah.
us is like a roller coaster.
Hmm.
Uh, so, for example, for me, for Sven, for Emily, if tomorrow, at least luckily in Portugal, is a holiday, um, hey, you should go there. Here in the US, you should go there in Europe. So, what's like the top three roller coaster suggestions from you?
Oh, wow. Okay. So, top three. Number one, where I fell in love with trail running, is Lake Tahoe, California. If you don't know where that is, look it up. It is a trail running heaven. Um, there's a trail called the Flume Trail, Flume, and it's as the name suggests, it's an old flume trail where they would put logs where they're logging, and they would put the logs on this man-made canal essentially and float it down. So it's this perfect like 2% grade, and it's right now it's like buffed out, sand, but it's the kind of sand that you don't feel like you're working hard to move through it, and so you can just fly on it. And it's 13 or half marathon one way, and it's at around 7,000 feet up, so meters, maybe 7K, 8K up. And you have this beautiful view of the Lake Tahoe, which is this massive lake in the middle of the Sierras.
Okay.
And it's experience this. You feel like you're floating. It's quite literally, yeah. So and you feel like you can just run at a clip. Like, it's just like, you don't have to look at your feet. You can really look at the surroundings. So that's number one. Number two would be, I traveled to Switzerland, and I got to run the Hardigrat. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Hardigrat, but it's maybe a marathon, a little bit less, maybe 25-mile marathon distance, one way. And it's not high in altitude, but it climbs up onto this ridge, and it is by Lake Louisiane, I believe is the name of the lake. I love lakes and water, as I've mentioned earlier. So if I can combine running and water, then I'm in heaven. So, but you come onto this single track that's like this iconic ridge line, and it's not very technical, but it's like very Swiss. So there's grass and the flowers, and there's a countryside to your left, and on the right there's this beautiful lake, and the clouds are all above, and the sun is shining down on you, and it's super hard. It's a lot of vert, so you climb maybe to the top point, maybe 8K of climbing from the base to the top of the ridge, and then you kind of just undulate on the top, and then you have a steep drop. It's even shorter. It's like 8K and maybe 5K worth of running, but then you have to take the train. There's a train that runs along that path by the lake, and so you have to run down to the train and make sure you get there on time for the last call to get back. But yeah, that was one of my favorite. And then I said what third was just probably running some of the course around Mont Blanc. I did a fast pack hike around it. I think it took me 3 days to go around. And And so I just took a backpack with, a bivvy and, just a little bit of money and some food.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was really stunning, just to be able to run through 3 countries, right? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I don't feel sad because Madeira is not one of the suggestions. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But
Well, we could have talked races. If we were talking races, it would be differently. Yeah.
you should, for example, you should go to if you visited already Madeira, you should visit also Azores. So the other Portuguese island.
Azores. Yeah.
Azores. It's like it's jaw breaking. Seriously, jaw breaking. But yeah, Sven, Emily, we have 3 incredible suggestions from the climbing ninja. So Anna, I don't know if Emily and Sven can turn the camera on, but in every talk, and since if this was in a in-person event, we will of course do this. It was 100% worth it. Uh, it was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all the experience. And I won't say I think, I'm sure that you deserve a big round of applause. So that's how we finish our journey talks. Let's keep in touch, especially to see if we can do the training focus conversation. Again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Again, let's keep in touch. All the success and have an incredible week, Anna.
Yeah, you as well. I just want to say thank you to joining with Sven and Emily. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, and it's a pleasure to share in the journey. And we'll be in touch.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Ana, muito obrigado. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you for
Bye.
participating too. Thank you so much. Bye bye.